Hey guys, it's Jasper, and today I'm going to be talking about first drafts. And the reason I am so excited is because I am almost through my first draft, and I think I'm going to be ahead of my deadline. Which is so exciting because I feel like I have been behind my deadlines, like my little goals. I've been behind so much. It's so exciting to be like, whoa, I'm almost done my first draft. So what I want to talk about is kind of two things or three things. The first is that what I initially started doing when I was starting this first draft, why I did it that way, and then secondly, what I'm kind of doing moving forward, or what I have been doing the last few months to get to where I am today. And that makes sense. So initially when I began writing, I was doing what I call comb through edits. And I call it that because, you know, when you're combing your hair, maybe you don't, but maybe you do. You're supposed to start like at the bottom to get through the knots and then go through the top and then slowly work your way up. And you don't get up to here until you've gotten the knots out of here. I'm not saying that this is how I comb my hair because very often I don't comb my hair at all. Every so often I do, and I'm reminded of what my mom told me, which is this is how you're supposed to comb your hair. So although I haven't applied this to actually combing my hair, I have applied it to my writing. And so comb through edits are when I write a chapter. So when I started and I wrote my first chapter, and I wrote, the next time I pick up the session, I'll reread what I had written that was new, read through it, and so long as there are no problems or knots, I'll keep reading through and then add to it. And then the next time I read, I won't reread obviously what I read last time, but I'll reread what was new. And so in that way, sort of you start here and then down and then down and down. So every time you pick up a new writing session, you read what you wrote last writing session. The reason why I started the way that I did was because I was working with a project that has a really long history with myself. The story that I'm working on is a story, or at least a world, that I began when I was in grade 7. So when I was in grade 7, I created this world, I started this story, and all throughout my grade 7 and 8 and then high school and into sort of my first year of university, I continued to write and add to the story. As I got into university further and further, I just became too busy and I didn't have enough time to commit to the story. And so what I did instead of always adding chapters was I just started building the world more and more. And so I would work on writing fairy tales for the world or myth for the world, because my story, as I've talked about before, is sort of a tapestry of stories, and that's something that's very important to me. And so I would just add elements to the world and world building for a few years. And so I didn't actually really start rewriting this book until 2 years ago. I started from the beginning, chapter 1, and rewrote the story because obviously my first technical draft was writing from grade 7 to my first year of university, and it changed a lot. What I wanted to do with the story changed a lot. When I first started the story, I had no idea the world that I was stepping into. And so 2 years ago, I started rewriting the story from the beginning, chapter 1. And so that's where I sort of consider my first draft starting. But when I was doing this, rewriting my book, I was also working on applications for my PhD, applying for conferences, and so to say the least, I was still pretty distracted by other things, and so I wasn't committing full-time attention to my story, although I was adding chapters, you know, when I had the opportunity to write. It wasn't until April of this year that I began trying to establish the habit of writing every day. And not until June or July that I knew I wasn't going to be doing my PhD, but I was going to be committing to full-time writing. And so I started doing that. And really not until September that I started taking my writing seriously in the way that I really owned it. And I felt like, yes, this is what I'm doing. It's not a compromise. This is what I want. This is exciting. This is scary, and really feeling good about it. And in that, I think October was when I set my deadline for December. So I had been doing these comb through edits, and I think for me that was important because the project was something that I was kind of parsing out from what I had created, when I was in grade 7 up until my first year of university. So when I started rewriting it 2 years ago, I was kind of translating what I had originally meant and adding in all the things I had been building into my world since then. And so comb through edits, I think, were important for me because they helped me to see, what were plot points that I started, what were, motivations of certain characters that I should be paying attention to, where could the story potentially be leading to me, leading for me. So for a time, comb through edits were really important. But when I got back from Scotland, which was, a trip to really inspire my writing and to mark, yes, this is what I'm doing, I'm writing full time. When I got back, I set my deadline in December for December 13th. I haven't told you guys the date because I was really nervous about missing it. So I set the December 13th outline, and then since I've been back from Scotland, I've just been feeling more and more I need to just write the story out. No fear, no hesitation, just write it out as I've plotted it out. Because the plot I created, I hadn't made until, I think it was sometime in the summer. I plotted out my story for the first time ever. I've been working on it since grade 7, but I had never plotted it out. And that was because when I created in grade 7, there was a real basic plot that I outlined actually in the introduction of the story. And also I was really focused on building the world and making the world an authentic place that I really believed in, that I didn't feel like at that point I knew what story I was going to tell. I just wanted to know about this world, and so it wasn't until the summertime that I really developed a timeline. And then after that, and then going to Scotland and coming back, I set my December deadline, and I set deadlines, mini deadlines based on plot, that I needed to get to this point, to this point, to this point, to this point. And that's been tremendously helpful. And I think that's why I've just been feeling that I needed to trade my old method of comb through editing for just write the thing, Jasper. Get to the end, and then for your second draft, you're going to, before you dive into your second draft, you're going to look at structurally what you've done, the things you need to add in, the things you need to change, the things you need to restructure. So that is why, I started with comb through edits, but now I'm moving to a place where I need to just write it out. What was difficult about that is that with comb through edits, you make a manuscript that's fairly pretty, and it's one that I was really proud of. Whereas what I've written in the last half of the book is a lot messier and I'm not as proud of, but it's good because sometimes you need to not write what's pretty, you need to just write it out so you can see it and trust that with the second draft, you're going to comb it out. Maybe I'll do comb through edits again for the second draft, but in the second draft you'll figure it out, and if not, then the third draft. Because, in my history of doing university for 7 years, the one thing I learned is that I don't produce an essay in one draft. I produce an essay in like a million drafts. And usually my first draft is the ugliest thing ever. I've got like a beautiful thesis that takes me a million years to make. And then I have this ugly essay and it gets more beautiful with each draft. So the same really needs to be applied to my writing. Why shouldn't my novel be the same? So in doing draft 1 and in doing it the way I've been doing, since September, October sort of, where I've just been writing it out rather than worrying about making it pretty, the things that I found most helpful for myself have been writing every day. And what I mean by writing every day is I write Monday through Saturday. I take Sunday off because Sunday is my Sabbath, it's my day of rest, and I think that it is crucial in a day where you can take off, rest, and just recharge. So Monday through Saturday, I have writing office hours. The second thing that's really helped me is this world that I've taken the time to build. Now for myself, it's been a world I've been building since grade 7. You don't necessarily have to do the same thing. You don't need years and 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 years of world building. But I think that you do need a time, especially in a fantasy novel, that's been my experience, is that it seems like you need a time to build that world, to really get to know that world, to live with that world. And so the time I've spent with that world, building it and continuing to build it, has been essential for being able to just write it out. The third thing that's been really helpful is setting plot-based goals versus a word count or like an hour count, because originally when I started writing every day in April, I was setting office hours that had to meet a certain time limit, and I think for a time that was good for me because it was just developing the habit and the discipline of sitting down and working for so many hours a day, committing so much time to my writing every day. For time that was important, but for now I'm at a place where plot-based goals, they work well, because some days it means I'm working all day and till 3 in the morning, and other days it means I need to work an hour or two and then I'm done and I can, you know, do other things in life, because eventually the dishes need to be washed, the dishes and groceries need to be done, the dishes and your clothes can only be clean for so long, the dishes, so it's nice to have a little bit of time to do real human people stuff. This is my opinion. So my plan for now, for the current day, for the present, is goal number 1, finish my draft. Second goal is going to be to celebrate, because I think it's important when you hit landmarks or monumental places, you know, where you've really made progress. I think it's important to take a day to celebrate and just be like, yeah, you've done so good. So I'm gonna celebrate. The third thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take advantage of the fact that I'm gonna be finishing before my deadline. And so I'm gonna use my December 13th deadline. Still, I'm gonna work up until that point, but what I'm gonna do is, originally I had planned to take the first week or 2 of January to plot out my goals for the year. And what I'm gonna do instead is I'm gonna get those done before December 13th. So that when January hits, I can hit the ground running. And so my goals for the year are going to include:
when is my second draft going to be done? When should I start looking into beta readers? When should I start looking into agents, publishers, marketing, draft 3, all of that kind of stuff, editing, looking into all those things and setting my goals for the year.
As always, guys, let's be a community of writers that help each other out. I hope that you found this video helpful, and I got nothing to cheers, but let's drink that coffee, write them words, and write them every day. Good luck with your first drafts, second drafts, or wherever you are. Cheers. The dishes need to be washed.